What was hygiene really like in the time of Jesus, far from modern ideas of cleanliness, comfort, and customs? After an entire day walking under the Galilean sun, amid dust, sweat, and manual labor, where did people wash their hands, their feet, their own bodies, and how did they relieve themselves? And what did these everyday gestures reveal about faith, purity, and belonging? For centuries, we have imagined the biblical world as disorganized, dirty, or indifferent to bodily care. But this image does not correspond to the first century. In the time of Jesus, hygiene was neither luxury nor modern comfort. It was daily discipline, practical necessity, and a visible expression of religious identity. Water required effort, cleanliness required method, and the body was directly linked to the idea of purity before God and the community. In this video, we will not treat hygiene as an ancient curiosity, but as an essential part of the life Jesus lived. Stay until the end, because understanding these simple gestures transforms the reading of the Gospels and reveals a Christ deeply incarnated in human reality. In first-century Galilee, water was not rare, but it was never simple. The lake, natural springs, and wells were present in the landscape, visible to all. Even so, each portion of water required real physical effort. It was necessary to walk to the source, wait one's turn, fill the heavy jar, and carry it back home. This journey shaped daily life. Water was not wasted because it cost time, strength, and domestic organization. Hygiene, therefore, was not born of comfort, but of discipline imposed by the limits of access. For this reason, a full bath was not part of the daily routine. It occurred occasionally at specific moments when the context allowed it. Daily care was expressed through partial and constant washings. Hands were cleaned repeatedly throughout the day. The face was washed upon waking and upon returning from the street. The feet, covered in dust after long walks, received special attention at dusk. The hot climate, constant sweat, and manual labor made these gestures necessary for a minimum of comfort and coexistence. This practice varied according to social condition and place. Among the poorest, water came from wells and community springs shared by many families. In the villages, the method was domestic, with jars, basins, and careful reuse. In larger cities, under Roman influence, more elaborate structures existed, but they were accessible to few. Even so, the logic was the same: to save, to share, and to use with purpose. Nothing was automatic. Each washing was a conscious choice within a limited system. It is in this world that the Gospels gain body. Offering water to wash feet was a sign of hospitality and respect. Jesus, by washing the disciples' feet, takes a common gesture and fills it with meaning. The purifications before meals revealed that care for the body was linked to faith. Water, body, and spirituality walked together. These simple gestures sustained collective life, avoided conflicts, and maintained daily order. There was no haste nor abundance, only careful repetition. Hygiene was part of the rhythm of the house and the village, learned from early on, transmitted in the silence of everyday life. But one inevitable question remained for that world. Without modern products and without industrial soap, how was this cleaning actually done day by day, right there? Without industrial soap, body cleaning in the ancient world followed simple and effective paths, learned through daily repetition. Vegetable ashes, resulting from the burning of wood, were mixed with water and used to remove grease and dirt from the skin. Fine sand helped loosen heavier residues, especially on the feet and hands, marked by the dust of the roads. These methods were not improvisation, but practices passed down through generations, adjusted to the hot climate and the scarcity of processed resources. The goal was not to eliminate odors completely, but to make the body acceptable for coexistence. The use of oil occupied a central place in this care. Olive oil was applied to the skin after cleaning, hydrating it, protecting it from the intense sun, and reducing the friction caused by constant dust. The oil facilitated the removal of accumulated dirt and diminished the body's natural odors. It was not a gesture of vanity, but of preservation. In a dry environment, cracked skin would break and become ill. The oil kept the body functional, resistant, and dignified, especially for those who worked outdoors every day. Perfumes were also part of this universe, but with a different meaning from the modern one. Myrrh, nard, and aloes were used in small quantities, mixed with oil, or applied on specific occasions. They functioned as bodily care and social sign, not as excessive luxury. Perfuming oneself helped people live together in close spaces, small houses, and community gatherings. Clothing followed a similar logic. It was washed less and aired more. Fabrics were exposed to the sun and the wind, and certain odors were understood as part of common life, not as moral failure. All of this shaped habits and expectations shared daily. The scriptures reflect this reality. Anointing with oil appears as a gesture of care, honor, and restoration. The woman who anoints Jesus does not perform an act foreign to her time, but carries this custom to a level of profound surrender and reverence. Psalms and Proverbs speak of perfumes as joy and blessing, not as excess. The body was treated with practical attention and spiritual meaning. To clean oneself was to prepare for the encounter with the other and with God. But what about the hands? Why were they so important to Jewish faith? In the world of Jesus, hands occupied a central place between the body and social life. They touched food, the ground, tools, people, and animals. Eating was done with the hands. Work depended on them. Walking required constant support. For this reason, washing hands was not merely a gesture of basic hygiene, but a meeting point between daily practice and religious identity. The care began before meals, continued after contacts considered impure, and extended as preparation for prayer. Hands needed to be ready to touch food and to present themselves before God. This practice was part of Jewish tradition and was deeply rooted in daily routine. Jars of water were kept near eating spaces. Simple basins were used for the pouring of water over the hands. It was not a complete cleaning, but a symbolic and practical gesture at the same time. The water flowed, carried away visible dirt, and marked a transition. The body left the outside world and entered the space of communion. It was a gesture learned from early on, repeated without fuss, incorporated into common life. It is in this context that the debate between Jesus and the Pharisees gains depth. The discussion about washing or not washing hands before eating was not medical nor hygienic in the modern sense. It was a spiritual, social, and identity conflict. What was at stake was not the presence of visible dirt, but the source of purity. For many religious leaders, the external gesture defined belonging and fidelity. For Jesus, purity did not begin in the hands, but in the heart. By questioning this practice, he did not reject tradition, but confronted its use as a criterion of exclusion. The practical dimension remained. Without modern cutlery, hands continued to be the main means of contact with food. Therefore, washing them made functional sense. But Jesus shifts the focus. He draws attention to what comes out of the human interior, not only to what touches the skin. The gesture continues to exist, but loses the power to define who is accepted or rejected. Faith ceases to depend on external marks and begins to demand inner transformation. And it is precisely when we look at the entire body, and not only at the hands, that a question almost always avoided arises. Where and how did people relieve themselves and care for the body in those moments? To speak about hygiene in the time of Jesus requires addressing an inevitable aspect of human life that rarely receives adequate attention: where and how people relieved themselves. In the first century, this subject was not treated with embarrassment, but with cultural discipline and religious concern. The body was seen as part of the order of community life, and even the most intimate gestures were subject to rules, limits, and care. There was no romanticization, but there was also no neglect. In Jewish villages, the most common custom was to use external areas, away from houses and spaces of coexistence. These places were not chosen at random. There was concern to maintain sufficient distance to preserve the purity of the domestic and collective environment. The body needed to move away so that the common space could remain organized. This habit was part of the routine and was learned from early on. It was not improvisation, but a cultural pattern repeated daily, integrated into the normal life of the village. After these moments, care for the body was simple and functional. Intimate cleaning was done with water and reusable fabrics, sufficient to restore a minimum of comfort and allow a return to common coexistence. The goal was not to eliminate any bodily trace, but to avoid visible contamination and maintain social order. The main focus remained on the hands and feet, which would quickly return to contact with food, people, and shared objects. In larger cities, under Roman influence, collective latrines existed. They were simple structures with aligned seats and basic drainage systems. These spaces required cultural adaptation and were not available to everyone. Even there, comfort was limited. Cleaning involved water, simple fabrics, and in some cases, diluted vinegar, used as a common disinfectant. Even so, the logic remained the same: functionality, not convenience. The scriptures reflect this practical and spiritual discipline. In Deuteronomy 23, there are clear instructions to keep waste away from coexistence and to maintain the camp organized. There was no knowledge of microbiology, but there was a deep understanding of order, health, and holiness. Care for these acts preserved collective life and expressed respect for the presence of God among the people. Reality was not idealized. Odors existed. Discomfort was part of human experience. Even so, there were clear rules, habits, and limits. Ritual purity did not ignore the body, but organized it. Each gesture, even the most intimate, was inserted into a system of community responsibility. And this leads to a greater truth. In the biblical world, hygiene was never merely physical. It always pointed to something deeper, spiritual. Jesus lived fully inserted in the world of the first century. His feet knew the dust of the roads, the heat of the ground warmed by the sun, and the accumulated fatigue of long walks. His body sweated under daily work and under the weight of constant movements between villages and towns. He did not observe this world from a distance. He inhabited it. He needed to wash himself, care for his body, and respect the limits imposed by material reality, like any other man of his time. The Incarnation was not symbolic. It was physical, concrete, and everyday. The scenes of the Gospels confirm this. Jesus participates in simple meals, sits around the common table, touches food with his own hands. At a decisive moment, he kneels to wash the disciples' feet, assuming the most basic gesture of domestic hospitality. He does not choose an elevated symbol, but a common act, learned since childhood. Care for the body appears there not as vanity, but as service. An everyday gesture becomes profound teaching, without losing its original simplicity. Jesus also touches the sick. He approaches bodies avoided, considered dangerous or impure. This contact does not ignore the reality of pain, fear, or social exclusion. On the contrary, it recognizes all of this and crosses established limits. By touching, he does not become contaminated, he restores. The gospel does not deny the body nor its fragilities. It assumes it as a place where grace manifests itself. This is the central cultural shock of the Christian message. Purity is not abolished, but redefined. It does not depend only on external rituals, but is born from the interior. Even so, Jesus does not despise the everyday gestures of care. He dignifies the human body by placing it at the center of spiritual experience. He neither romanticizes the hardness of ancient life nor degrades it. He shows that God enters exactly into this limited, tired, and real space. Understanding Jesus within this world changes the way we read the Gospels. His words gain historical weight. His gestures become even more radical. Faith ceases to be abstract and becomes incarnated. And this prepares the way for an inevitable conclusion. The everyday, lived with fidelity, is also a place of revelation. And if this documentary has edified you, leave your like, share it with other brothers and sisters, write your impressions in the comments, and suggest new themes. In this way, we will continue together, learning from the history that sustains the Christian faith. Until the next video, and may God bless you.